And hello, everyone. We're going to start the Sutliffian Report in a little under a minute. Just thought I'd say hello. We have Darcy out there, XYZ, and oh my gosh, it's going to be an interesting show. Topic is going to be, why do hijabis make fake claims of Islamophobia? Uh, I've got it documented. It's part of one of the chapters of my last book. Oh, and here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh. Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Today we have quite the show. As this is a Christian news show, I want to start with reading from the scriptures, but I want to let you know that what we're going to be covering, why do hijabis make fake claims of Islamophobia, is a lot more important than it sounds. Sounds like a superficial type thing, but as part of being Christians, we have a duty to be concerned about those around us. We have a duty to care. And we have a duty to understand as well. I say those things not making light of things. I say that we have to be serious. We have to be, we have to be great in the things we do. We have certain responsibilities in life. But let's start with the scriptures. Exodus 1, 15 to 22. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the names of the one was Shiphrah, and the other Puah. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you should kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have you done this thing, and have saved the children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and delivered ere the midwives came in unto them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. It's a pretty sick passage when you think about this. And we have, history kind of proves this out. So let me just get into this. The Egyptians evolved in their jealousy of Israel being blessed of God. They moved to oppress them and then to enslave them. Then a desire for bloodshed, too abhorrent to do themselves, to that evil and vile sickness called bloodthirstiness. This jealousy intertwined with hatred that someone and not them is being so blessed. They believe they deserve the blessings, not anyone else. This is a sense of self-righteousness, that they are the best and that only the Egyptians are those who are in the right and goodly people. In their minds, they're saying these things and looking around and seeing the great works of architecture on the backs of those vile creatures, their slaves. Look at all that we have done. Could any other have done such wonders if we were not blessed? Do we not deserve even more? Romans 3:10 to 18 looks at the heart of man. It sees right into the darkness of the abyss that exists, if it is allowed, as it was then in the heart of the leader of the Egyptians. Here's what it says. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understands. There is none that seeks after God. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that does good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery in their ways. And the way of peace have they not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. a need to control, a belief in superiority over others, a belief that they alone are above all others, as if they themselves are God, takes the Pharaoh into the heart of darkness and orders such an evil upon the Hebrew people that he could not order his own people to do it, until it became irrefutable that his own order, so shamefully evil, became so obviously ignored. He sent his own people to commit such a crime that he thought so horrible he had thought at first to protect them from it. But the living God is one of great and awesome power. Nothing is beyond his grasp. He knew all things. He knew all that was happening and had long prepared for such. He even knew the names of the midwives, and he gave them blessings. Shifra means beauty, and Pua means radiance. They speak to the incredible work that God was about to do that day. Dear Lord Jesus, Lord, may you alone be blessed. May your name be lifted high in our praises. You know of our troubles long before we experience them. You plan for us. You make the impossible possible. You answer our prayers even before we finish them. Lord, use me as part of your plans. Allow me to be one who shares of your boundless love with others. Use me that I may be the one you choose that will plant the seed by telling others of your work on the cross. In Jesus' name, amen. Wow. I mean, so I actually write these things one every day. And this is, they come into devotionals, and that's the stuff you can find if you actually go looking for my work on Amazon and elsewhere. My goal is, first of all, to spread the good news. And secondly, to share important information. And that's not always easy or pleasant. So let me get into this. I'm just going to grow this screen here. And I want to get into this topic. Why do hijabis make fake claims of Islamophobia? Now, if anybody has difficulty hearing, please let me know, because I do want to make sure that this stuff gets out. I didn't put any real faces here because I think of all people under Islam, the female is the most oppressed. And, there's going to be a discussion on that in here by hijabis. Okay, so we'll listen to them. But this is really, really important stuff when you think about it. We don't ask these questions. We don't think about them because we do not, we are not, some of us who aren't female don't think about it that way because we're not female. But even the women who are not Muslim, they don't have to think about what it means to wear a hijab. Oh, we're going to get into that because you have to ask that question. Why do they wear it? Because in order to know why they make these fake claims of Islamophobia, you have to know a lot more than is the claim fake. So what I'm going to share with you next is a video. And let me get to the right screen here. Hold on a second. It's the joy of doing things the right way. Here we go. And, oh, by the way, see that Sutliffian Report sign. If you could just click on the like and click on subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. That helps us get more out. The algorithm picks up the numbers, and it says, please, it tells other people to look at it because of your help. Thank you for doing that. All right. So the next thing we have to hear, I want to share with you a video that I heard about this Virginia hijabi complaint of Islamophobia. All right, so there's this complaint. Now take a good look at the date on here, December 20th, 2021. It's really important. All right.
Working.
No sound.
Sorry?
Is there sound?
Oh,
There's
you're not here.
no sound.
Oh,
Yeah.
the joy of not pushing that button. Thank you.
They make
All
it so
right.
small that you miss it.
I didn't even see that button come up, and I have to remember. Thank you for checking. That's why I'm glad to have help. We'll try that one more time. Okay, yeah, because they got to do something about that. That's, yeah, the joy. Okay, now we'll try that one more time. And all right. We just go to the right slide, and then I will share. Okay. And I did that wrong. Okay, the joy of doing things live and getting things right. All right. Okay, so here we go. Getting back to it's like the joy of having too many things up at the same time, too. Here we go. Thank you. All right, here we go. Now, again, what I want to tell you is take a good look at this. And the reason I'm saying to take a good look at this is because of the date on here. December 20th. Keep that in mind.
The Fairfax High School sophomore says two of her male classmates were making Islamophobia.
It's really low. It's really low.
Okay.
Is this real life?
All right.
Please tell me this happened
So
in the
we'll do it the other way then. All right. So this is the joy of having different ways to share. All right. I put it in a separate video because the original video was terrible. And I had to actually get close to it to hear it. So let's try this one more time. Just in case you make sure things work two different ways. That's the joy. That's the joy of streaming and learning how to do things. All right, so we'll get this done. We'll try it a different way. Some of these things you just have to try different ways. All right, so we'll just go back to where I put everything. And it's my show notes for today. And I call this file Muslim Guy Gets It Wrong.
The Fairfax High School sophomore says two of her male classmates were making Islamophobic comments when one of them grabbed her hijab.
Is this real life? Please tell me this happened in the metaverse. Assalamu alaikum. What's going on, everybody? This young Muslim student, Ikram Muhammad, was attacked by two male students at the Fairfax High School in the United States of America. She said they yelled Islamophobic slurs at her, they tried to pull off her hijab, and they beat her. All of this in school. I'm sorry. Is this school a training ground for mixed martial arts? Are these tryouts for the UFC? I mean, honestly, even the UFC has weight classes and a male roster and a female roster. Are these male students practicing for a future life in domestic violence? And by the way, where are the teachers? Were they on the sidelines taking bets? Or were they holding their cameras yelling, I think I just really exposed my age with that joke. Anyways, here's what the Muslim student had to say about this.
How disgusted I am that I had to go through this at my school where I should feel safe. He pushed me here and he pushed me in the back. And then he threw me across the room. It hit the desk and I had trouble breathing because my chest hit the chair, and the school's trying to cover it up by saying it was a panic attack.
In response to all of this, the school just put her and her attackers in detention.
Okay, so hold on a second here. If you work at school, the only way you would put these two kids in the same room, first of all, is pretty much they've agreed to bury the hatchet. All right? And the other thing is, they both were caught doing something wrong. According to this man, so far, he can't see that she's done anything wrong because this guy never checked things out. Remember, he put this out on December 20th.
Together. My only question to the school is, are you hot? In an act of solidarity, many students from that school walked out in support and in solidarity with their fellow Muslim student.
Several hundred Fairfax High School students walked out of class today in protest of what happened.
It was also mentioned that the police might be investigating this to determine what really happened. Now, let me just be clear.
Wait. He said the police might be investigating this. So you already know he did this report on the 20th, and he hasn't checked to see if what he's reporting on is true.
Something. I don't know what race or religion her attackers were. I mean, just for a second, could you imagine they were brown and Muslim? Yo, that would confuse things. But honestly, I would love to hear her attackers' side of the story, because you know they have a crazy story to go with this. Well, you know, she sneezed so loudly and we thought it was a bomb. We wanted to be righteous people and saviors of the school and protect the school, and we jumped her. And just to make sure that everything was okay, we just pulled her hijab off too, just to make sure there's no more bombs. Or they're just racist, bigoted pieces of... Also, I'm like 99% sure that they called her a terrorist, because...
So wait a minute. He's already, I mean, he's making stuff up as he goes along. This is just... I mean, again, part of being responsible and getting the news out is telling the truth and not making stuff up as you go along. But this guy's really good at making things up.
Obviously they would. Like, why wouldn't they? I mean, chances are they're unoriginal and they wouldn't have come up with anything creative or innovative or impressive. Seriously, step up your game. If you're gonna insult us and try to ruin our day, you might as well make it entertaining.
No, he's got a point.
Come up with something new. Surprise us. In the middle of our shock of the Islamophobic attack, we'll be like, you know, if I can just get over the bigotry and Islamophobia, that would actually be hilarious. And my message to all racist Islamophobes out there: you don't actually believe that Muslim lady or girl in a hijab is actually a terrorist. Because if you really thought that she was a terrorist, an ISIS representative with an explosive vest under her coat, ready to explode, I guarantee that you cowards would not be within a 10-mile radius of her. Just like if you knew that someone had mafia ties or gang ties, you wouldn't even look at them wrong.
So did you catch that? He says if you're a terrorist, he equates you with ISIS, and then you're going to have a bomb on you. All right. And then he's saying, oh, the mafia guy, you're not going to look at wrong. Okay. So the mafia guy's not going to kill you. He's not going to blow you up. So which would you rather deal with? He's missing it. He's totally missing it. And, oh, is the volume not working? That I apologize for.
It's fine.
We'll see. It's fine. Okay. All right. So let's keep going.
But in this case, you know she's not a terrorist. You know she's not a threat. All you see is an easy victim to take out your bigotry on. That's it. Cowards. Plain and simple. And I do hope that a police investigation does take place and they find out what happened and if it happened the way it was described. If so, from a legal aspect, I hope they get charged with a hate crime. I hope it sets a precedent for future bigots and Islamophobes who even think of attacking someone. It sets a precedent that this is not acceptable. And then...
So that's the issue, isn't it? I mean, that's the real issue. If this was real, if it's real, it should be labeled a hate crime. Okay. So whose job is it to prosecute hate crimes? That would be the feds. Okay. It's very rare you see states get involved in that, but they do. So let's go back here. I'm going to go back and I'm going to share. Let's take a look at what's actually factual and true. And I got to put this back into the joy. Here we go. All right. I have to put things from current slide. And we're getting there. So, again, he did this on the 20th. That's what's all important. When you make foolish and stupid mistakes, you have a responsibility to admit you're wrong or to take down the video. All right. I just saw this video a couple days ago. And I'm just going to grow this. All right. This was reported on the 28th by WTOP News. Police find no evidence of hate crime in Fairfax High School altercation. City of Fairfax Police Department investigation has determined that a physical altercation at Fairfax High School on Tuesday was not a hate crime, according to a press release. So, Mr. Muslim guy, what's the issue here with you? I mean, do you not know? Can you not see it? And that's supposed to be working. There we go. I mean, how can you not know? All right. Police said that a female student, the investigation revealed there was no racial comments made by either student, according to police. Police said that the female student confirmed her hijab became partially undone during the altercation, exposing her hair. The female student told police that the information posted on several social media sites stating that the racial comments were used during the altercation were false. Wait a minute. Did you see the video he posted? This is where it gets interesting. The video he posted was actually done after so this is where it gets amusing. So she did a video making a false accusation after the police already proved it wrong. So who can be sued here? It's not the guys who did this. That's what gets interesting. So let's keep going here. It says a female Muslim high school student in Virginia admitted last week that an alleged crime against her did not actually happen. Oh, this is from Hoax Alert. Hey, from College Fix. And look at the date, December 20th. And you know what was amusing? When I cut this heading off from the College Fix header, the top on the right, it says, don't miss a thing. Okay. The fictitious instance of Islamophobia against Akram Mohammed, during which she was called racial slurs, pushed and had her hijab pulled off, occurred at Fairfax High School on December 14th. So this guy had a chance to not look like an idiot. However, he's probably smacking himself in the forehead right now. Let's continue. And the joy is where I'm seeing this. I can't. Just a second. I have to pull up my other screen so I can actually read this. It's the joy of using multiple screens. Here we go. Students virtually immediately planned to walk out to protest the attack, and a poorly worded change.org petition, written by high schoolers, what do you want, was put up because Muhammad forever has the attack engraved in her mind. I mean, they did this quickly. It was on the 14th. They did this quickly. You notice they didn't give the date. A woman identifying herself as Muhammad's cousin posted an Instagram video in which she claims the attack began after Muhammad's backpack accidentally bumped a male student. Muhammad said the male student's friends told him she was ugly and little. The cousin said, does that sound racial? Ugly and little? No? Okay. Following that, the male student tried to grab Muhammad's hijab from the back. She said she turned around and grabbed his hair. So he didn't touch her. Are you catching that? He didn't put his hands on her at all. She turned around and grabbed his hair. Oh, so who put the hands on first? It was her. This is where it gets into. This is out there. This is part of the police report, people. I'll show that to you in a minute. She grabbed his hair and punched him in the stomach. Muhammad said that the male student then threw her into a desk, resulting in bruising of the left side of her body. So has he at any point taken off her hijab? This is her words. No. A local chapter. Now we get CARE, the Hamas in America unit out there. Okay. Local chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations demanded an investigation, but not before lamenting the lack of discipline against the assailant and his Islamophobia. A female Muslim student at Fairfax High School in Virginia was reportedly assaulted by a male student who has faced no repercussions. We call on law enforcement to immediately launch a hate crime investigation. That was on the 16th. Oh, hate crime investigation. Let's keep going.
Mind if I
And,
say something
okay.
about this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it is a really kind of fascinating situation. So, to me, what's really important, I guess, my little hippie side of myself, uh, being the hippie guy that I am, but I think what's really important is that you investigate any type of case. So, what it sounds like here is
Agreed.
perhaps this young man was not gentlemanly. I would not put my hands on a woman ever. I don't think that's the appropriate thing a man should do. But these are young people. Um, it's a sad situation what occurred, and it seems kind of intense to jump into this. I think what the point that you're making, I think, is fair. Is was there an investigation done? Because when we do this, do you know about the Solkowitz case? Are you familiar with that?
I probably am. I just not the name apparently.
I'll tell you what
I-
happened. She was called the mattress girl, but basically this happened during the Me Too movement, which was, it seems to be a very significant thing. There are a lot of women who have been abused, which is important and valid. And we have to be aware that there can be also false accusations towards men too. These all have to, that's why these things have to be investigated. Because if you don't investigate it, someone is going to be condemned and insulted. So you don't want to do that. So basically this woman had a relationship with a man, and what happened in this relationship was that it was originally consensual, but then according to Solkowitz, it became abusive. So then she went around her campus, I think it was Columbia, and she was walking around campus carrying a mattress saying that she was assaulted on this mattress. And it was kind of revealed that it's a little bit more complex than that. And there has been a backlash. I investigated the whole story on this, and there's a backlash saying that this man may have had problems with other women, but that's separate from this particular issue. Just because she may have had problems with other women, and maybe men as well, he had an issue with this woman, which was a consensual relationship originally. Then she basically stated this was assault, and then she became this kind of spearhead for the Me Too movement. I think that's a very dangerous thing to do. And because when you take that position, what you do is you basically destroy credibility to people who actually do go through really what would be considered really intense sexual assault. When you start saying, well,
yes.
I had a bad relationship with a boyfriend, right? Versus someone who is on the street and gets assaulted. They're not equivalent. These are not equivalent things. So are there Muslims that are assaulted and attacked? For sure. Definitely.
Yes, definitely.
They're
Definitely.
probably
Not
the
even a
people
doubt
on the
about it.
news.
I'm not questioning that. That's the important thing here.
Like
I don't
the
think anybody's
Christchurch
questioning that.
shooting was evil, atrocious, and horrible. That was
Yes.
Islamophobia. You can say that. That's fine. You could say Muslim community was targeted and assaulted. That's valid and accurate. But these types of things, I think it starts to look like. Have you ever seen those magazines when you go into the store, like Inquirer?
The National
and it's
Enquirer.
like a tabloid magazine.
Yes.
You see the tabloid magazines and you're like, is this really accurate information that we're looking at? Or is this sensationalized information? And
every
that's the
once in a while,
problem.
you'll see them with the aliens on the front page. Yes.
And my problem with this is when you make this type of case, you're saying there's a perpetrator of this crime. So who is the perpetrator of this crime? That's the problem. Will these young men be now considered Islamophobes and monsters? And that's problematic. We don't want to do that. You want to investigate all of these things before you jump to that space. That's my position. Go and research before you condemn.
And then it's in particular, if you are the person making the accusation, this is the thing I would say: shut your mouth to the public until the investigation is done. Because should you be lying, especially if you should be lying, and you go out and repeat these accusations after or during the case, and you get caught lying, you've opened yourself to an incredible lawsuit. Now, the first video I shared, I believe that was taken on the 16th because that was during the walkout. Okay. So we have 2 days later. So she's gone out the 16th and she's publicly made accusations. Now, the police have already investigated this. This is where it gets interesting. They write the report on the 18th, but my bet is they did the interview on the 14th when this happened. Knowing that in general, the police get called in immediately. They do what they can, especially when we're talking about a kid situation. They do what they can, and the parents are there. So the parents hear it all. And the parents apparently, this is the other thing about it. The parents apparently didn't object to those 2 kids serving their detention sentences. This is what we also call in-school suspension. So this is the thing. So the City of Fairfax Police Department published this. This is a press release. The date, December 18, 2021. Mr. Muslim guy has got to be smacking himself in the head. City of Fairfax Police Department is actively investigating an alleged hate crime. The police, I'm just going to skip down because we've already read about it happening December 14th. Police investigation determined that no physical altercation, that the physical altercation between the 2 Fairfax High School students was not a hate crime. The investigation revealed there were no racial comments made by either student. The female student confirmed her hijab became partially undone during the altercation, exposing her hair. This is the important part to catch. She confirmed that her hijab became loosened and her hair could be seen. The female student advised that the information posted on several social media sites stating that racial comments were used during the altercation was false. Yet she went on film 2 days later and testified to it. That's what we're getting into trouble with here. And that's why I think she's in trouble. Well, I want to see. You've mentioned one other. Let's take a look at another hijabi claim. I'm not saying, again, that all of these are false, but let's look at a few. This one is from 2018. And this is, again, the number one reason why I'm sharing this, again, is we have to let the police do their job. We have to let investigations be done before you start making allegations of hate crimes. And you know, I think even before the media should dare to report some things, they should allow the police to do their job. Because you don't have all the facts, you should not be reporting it. Again, this comes from the College Fix staff. They're one of these sites I actually really do like and pay attention to. So this came out January 12th and 2018. Hate crime hoax confirmed. Police say girl who claimed man threatened to cut off her hijab lied. Now, when you first listen to this story, you're going to sit there and go, how did we ever swallow that one? How did anyone ever swallow that one? How did you really need to pay attention to this one before you you're going to say this. It will just blow your mind. Here we go. Akin to a familiar theme, before and after the 2016 U.S. presidential election, an 11-year-old female Toronto grammar student is claiming a man attempted to cut off her hijab while she was on her way to school this morning. According to CBC News, Koala Norman, who attends the Pauline Johnson Junior Public School, said she felt the man behind her. So she turned around to see what was up. After she screamed, the man ran away, but returned minutes later to continue cutting her hijab again. So again, she claimed a man. What is happening here? Before and after the 2016, while she was on her way to school. Did you catch that? So he's running to catch up to her and when she's saying, okay. The article continues. Toronto police say they don't know whether to call this a hate crime. The assailant is described as an Asian man in his 20s with a mustache and glasses. Koala said she told the man, what you're doing is really wrong. You should not act like this, and especially I'm a kid. Toronto District School Board spokesperson Ryan Bird told the CBC Toronto that police and the student's family was immediately contacted after Koala reported what happened to school officials. This is shocking to learn of this assault, and we'll be working closely with police to offer any assistance that we can. In the meantime, we're offering support to the impacted students and her family. The Toronto Star adds. Speaking at press conference Friday, the victim, 11-year-old Koala Noman, Says the man smiled at her when he cut her hijab. She appeared alongside her mother, Salma Samad, and her younger brother, 10-year-old Mohammed Zakaria, who was walking with her at the time of the attack. Speaking at the podium, the girl's emotional mother told reporters she was happy that she's safe and said the community has been supportive of her daughter. I don't know why I did that. It's just not Canada. I'm so proud to be a Canadian, and I feel so safe in this community, Samad said. Samad said she grew up in Canada and has been here for 25 years and has not seen this type of incident before. I'm frustrated and I'm angry, but I do believe in peace in Canada. I'm so proud to be a Canadian, and I want to give him that same message, she said. In early December 2016, a female Muslim Baruch College student claimed several men shouting Donald Trump attempted to tear off her hijab on New York City subway train. She later admitted to making it up. So here's an update to this particular thing. Toronto police confirmed that the alleged attack didn't happen. Investigators worked extremely hard since the allegations on Friday. They gathered evidence from a variety of sources before concluding the story was untrue. Police spokesman Mark Pugash said, adding the girl who reported the incident will not face any legal consequence. Wait a minute. No legal consequence? Well, it's because she's 10 years old. Pugash said false claims like Ms. Noman's are quite rare. Are they? This is another one. Prosecutors won't file charges against Muslim students suspected of hate crime hoax. This is from 2017. And again, it's the same type of thing. Someone's going to, this one, they're talking about hijab being threatened to be set on fire with a lighter. And, this case, it's rejected by the Toronto police. Again, they're rejected by the police. This is in Michigan. All right, here's the thing. The FBI did an investigation here. They found that the incident not only did not occur, they came to the conclusion after concluding witnesses, interviews, and reviewing multiple surveillance videos in the area in question. During the course of the investigation, numerous inconsistencies in the statements provided by the alleged victim were identified. Following thorough investigation, detectives had determined the incident in question did not occur, police stated. Police talked to businesses nearby and reviewed surveillance tapes in hopes of tracking down the suspect. No one witnessed the event. And the woman was never seen in any surveillance footage. Detectives reviewed hours of footage. The woman could be charged with filing a false police report. That's the reason why the kid wasn't charged. That's what it comes down to. She was a child. And the idea that she could report this thing without being coached is really hard to believe. All right. My question here. So is the hijab required? And so I took this from Surah 33:59. It says, "O you prophets, say to your wives and to your daughters and to the women of the believers, let down their wrappers over them, that in this they will be known, so they will not be harmed. And Allah was merciful and kind." What do you mean they won't be harmed? Wait a minute. So what's the purpose of the hijab? Anybody catching this? What is the purpose? Think about that. What is the purpose? So they will not be harmed? What are they saying here? Is this wrapper, this covering over their head? Oh, well, where else is this in Islam? Where's in the Quran? Let's go. And it says here, "And say to the believing women to restrain them and to guard their private parts and do not display their ornaments except that which appears from it, and that they throw their veils over their bosom and do not display their ornaments except their husbands or their fathers or their husbands' fathers or their sons or their sisters' sons." Okay, so we've got all these male people who are allowed to see the hair. We got husbands, fathers, sons. Okay. Sisters, sons. Okay, let's talk about the women. Who's allowed to see? Their women. Now you're the women of the husbands, the women of all these other guys. Okay, they can see it. The right hand possessed. That's all the sex slaves, all the slaves owned. The male followers who have no substantial sexual desire. What? Again, this is where it gets important to understand the purpose of the hijab. It's to prevent perversion, prevent molestation. I didn't say it. The Quran says it. Am I wrong? Does anybody disagree with me? Hello? You're on.
Ask that one more time.
So am I wrong? Is there anything here that says that the hijab, the purpose of it, is to protect someone from being molested?
Now, why would they be molested in the first place?
And this is a statement that if they don't wear this stuff, that's the, yeah.
Now, here's my question to the Muslimas. Do they even know that this is not from Allah, but this is from the pervert Umar, who liked to peep on Muhammad's wives as they were going to do their, business?
Well, I'm not even going to that depth because I'm not looking at the history. I'm just looking at this particular thing. I mean, yes, Umar is involved. That's not a question. I guess the issue for them is if they're not covering their hair, is said in the last. Let me just go this one more time. They're not covering their hair. I'm just going to go back one slide, if I can. Okay. Thought I did. Let me see if I did. No, I didn't. Okay. All right. It's so they will not be harmed. Okay. That's the purpose of covering the hair. So they will not be harmed. So this is part of what I get concerned about because I write and I talk about civilization jihad. So the real purpose of the hijab is not to do anything but to identify them as Muslim. So if they are the women of Islam, then they will not be molested. That's what this says. And that's why it's important to say it again here. It's extremely, extremely important. And here's what I thought was humorous when I was reading this. And, I talked to people who are Muslim. I've gotten comments from Tarek Fatah when I wrote my book on this. His take on this, Tarek Fatah is what I would call a socialist Muslim. I consider more of a socialist than a Muslim, but he writes for the Toronto Star, and he's generally pretty forthright and honest. And he talks about what he believes the hijab is not consistently the same thing as we're referring to it today. There's another guy who refers to this and says, well, he's, again, look at what he's talking about in the rest of this second part of the verse, and that they do not stomp with their feet so that their ornaments may be known. And repent to Allah together, O you believers, perhaps you may prosper. But okay, so what was this stomping supposed to do? It was supposed to achieve a lift on the person, so they could reveal their hair or whatever. Again, this covering is supposed to also cover, their breast area. So if you look at the different concepts of hijab, that's one of the things where you will find people like Tarek Fatah who say, well, you don't have to wear it. This is supposed to basically just cover your chest. And, I'm not the expert in Arabic, but I sat there and I looked at this, I'll give him that one. Maybe it's not a requirement.
I agree. I agree with his assessment. I think his assessment is correct. I think it just depends on the person and their interpretation of the word. It's vague. So hijab, khimar, these types of terms that refer to this, to the coverings and veils, it's completely nuanced. You know,
So
there is no yeah.
So I just want to pull out Representative Ilhan Omar made bold statements about her job and reasons for wearing it. In March of 2019, she told Vogue magazine that wearing her hijab allows her to be a walking billboard, not only for her faith, but also representing something different from the norm. To me, the hijab means power, liberation, beauty, and resistance. But according to this scripture that is this Quran, it says the reason you wear it is so you don't get molested. And again, if you're going to wear it, that's for protection. It's not for liberation. And if you're wearing it, it shows a lack. I mean, it's a display that you have a lack of power, is what it sounds like to me. Tarek Fatah, the Canadian Muslim reformist, as he sees himself, I'm going to read what he says. He says of this: the fact is that while Sikh turban, Jewish yarmulkes, and the Catholic crucifix are definitely religious symbols, the hijab is not. Rather, it is a political symbol that until the late 1970s was unheard of in Pakistan, India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Turkey, Somalia, and Nigeria. It was the uniform of the Muslim Brotherhood in the Arab world. Now, I'm going to get into that later. Fatah also made mention of Farid Shiki, who lives in Quebec, and agrees with him that the hijab is a political symbol more than a religious one. Shiki said, the hijab conceals in itself the idea, the representation, or the thought of a first generic sense, which is ignored by all and which conveys a double meaning. Translated in French or in other languages, this word wants to say curtain, separation, hanging. Is that correct, Isa? I'm just gonna
Veil, curtain, all those are valid terms, sure.
Thank you. So he simply referred to as a separation of a space into two, the foreign men of the prophet's house and that of his women. The history reminds us after the death of the prophet, the male power extended the territory hijab, imposing it as a separation between the spaces of all men and all women. Finally, at those generally Islamic and not Islamic sightings versus al-Hijab, Surah 33, the khimar is a shawl, and jilbab or a thobe, I'm probably pronouncing that one terribly wrong, are shawls worn by the women of the time in these same Arab Gulf countries. They did not have the function of covering, as they would like to make us believe, the head, but the shoulders and the chest. So this is a statement that even at the time of when they're claiming this was for, I mean, we're talking about the 7th century, that they're claiming this is for, that nobody wore hijabs back then. And that's kind of an interesting take on this. But if we're going to accept what women like Omar say, that this is part of a requirement, that's why she's allowed to wear that in the Hall of Congress, which is against all the rules in Congress. You're not allowed to wear any headgear. Native Americans have not been allowed to wear their headdresses of any kind. Jewish people have not been allowed to wear the yarmulke. But it's allowed for Islam, which is another statement of superiority towards Islam, which is, again, something to think about. And this is what I'm getting at. It may be harder to see and this is still full, but this comes from memory.org. And I think this is all important. You know, the Al-Qaeda leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri, deemed the Western battle against the hijab to be part of the war on Islamic Ummah. Now, Al-Qaeda considers the battle of the hijab all important because it is a fight against Western values. And that's extremely important to grasp and understand. So I don't think we can have a discussion on the hijab without recognizing that Al-Qaeda has an interest in this. They want this battle. They want to see Western civilization give in. And that's interesting. So I'm going to see if I can, just a second here. I'm going to hit escape from that one, and I'll hit stop sharing for a moment because I want to play this one. And apparently the sound doesn't work as well when it comes off my off the PowerPoint. So let's go to that. So this video is coming up. I'm going to share is a video about Turkey and how they came to be using how they came to be using the hijab. Now this is where I think it's important. I think you'll be surprised. For decades, hijab in Turkey was considered to do so. They were banned from public buildings, schools, universities. So why was a piece of cloth considered so dangerous? Turkey is officially a secular state, founded by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Atatürk wanted to keep in religious symbols out of state affairs, so he promoted Western-style attire. But since over 90% of Turkey is Muslim, Atatürk never banned the headscarf. The first hijab ban in public institutions came after the 1980 military coup, but the ban was strengthened in 1997, extending to all universities in Turkey. The headscarf was considered a threat to the country's secularism, so women needed to take off their hijabs if they wanted to go to school, work in public buildings, enter a library, or take a photo for official documents. On May 22nd, 1999, a member of parliament was kicked out because for her headscarf.
It's Merve.
Yeah, thank you. Bülent Ecevit says, "This is not a place to challenge the state. Bring this woman in line," he's yelling. Some women were arrested or prosecuted for refusing to take off their hijabs or protesting the ban. Persuasion cells were set up to convince girls to take off their hijabs. Many resorted to studying university abroad, and those who couldn't afford it wore wigs or caps. The AK party promised to lift the ban once in power, but faced constant opposition. This is Recep Tayyip, former Turkish PM, current president, and he's saying that they deserve the rights to wear the hijab. 2010, the headscarf ban was lifted in universities. 2013 in state institutions. 2014 and in high schools. The hijab ban is no longer a thing in Turkey. Now, why did I share that? Well, the AKP is the Muslim Brotherhood in Turkey. Now, we just talked about Al-Qaeda being behind this battle for the hijab. The parent of Al-Qaeda is the Muslim Brotherhood, people. And who is CARE? That was also got on this bandwagon. We mentioned them earlier. CARE is Hamas in America. Hamas is a chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood. Some of these things, it just seems so impossible, but the reality is it's sometimes worse than we want to admit. I sit there and I look at some of these things and I say, how is this even possible? Again, we have to look at this. They want us to look at this as a war. That is not a choice. It's a forceful thing. They want to make a claim of Islamophobia. Again, why are they doing these things? We're going to get into that still. But if we start to recognize this as part of a battleground, I think that is actually important. Now, I want to look at one more piece here, that how it's a battleground. I'm going to pull up a slide here, and then I'm going to play the video. And let's see here. Okay. Islamophobia is dangerous. Censor all other thoughts. Now, a doctor who wrote an article, it's an opinion piece. It's not even a question. In a Canadian medical publication, under fire for Islamophobia and dangerous words. I don't know how many people are aware, but Canadians do not have freedom of speech. They have what's called freedom of expression, and that is highly limited because they have a motion, and it's not. Motions are basically our concept of a bill. It's not yet law, but they're still working on outlawing Islamophobia. This stuff is still there. So when I'm going to play this video, and it should surprise you. Let me just pull this up and get to the right one. I think this is it. And that's not it. Oh, joy of joys. Did I not share it? Okay. Just a second here. Get to go look for where I usually put stuff. All right. This is the joy of, and now I can't see it. Oh boy. All right, let me pull this up. There's always more than one way to skin a cat, people. Sounds horrible, but all right, let's see here. And I had it. Here we go. I just have to stop it. Okay. Let me get this ready in just a second. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again, and hopefully can get this one out. Joy, I have too many windows open. Way too many windows open. All right. And way too many. Move obvious screen recorder. Let's try this one. And it's not giving me the option to share sound. That's okay. Maybe it's because. All right, so maybe I won't be able to play it. All right. So we'll go back here. This doctor basically, he called the hijab an instrument of oppression, and that's problematic. They've made these accusations against him because he's called the hijab an instrument of oppression. Now the question should be, is this truthful or is it not? And if it's truthful, what does it mean? And that's what we need to ask. If it's truthful, what does that mean? So is this really a problem? So the truth of the matter is they consider it so oppressive. His letter, his article oppressive. They censored it. I tried to go find this. It was removed. It was removed from the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Now he had written this, and people started making accusations against him at his medical practice, calling him Islamophobic, saying he must treat his Muslim women different, his Muslim patients different. They started filing charges, and he actually came back and was ready to start suing anyone who makes these charges. And so they just have tried to embarrass him. So the Canadian Medical Association Journal has, said don't use an instrument of oppression. They retracted this whole article. I would have loved to have read it to see what he thought. But, censorship is more important to support Islamophobia. Yeah. So is the hijab obligatory or sunnah? And I'm just going to be concerned because I don't think the sound is on here again. And I'm going to have to see if I can get out of this just a second. And this is the joy of trying to put too many things together. All right. Let's try this one more time. Okay. I had Bilal Phillips, and I have him saying something about is the hijab oppressive? And he comes out and he says, yes, it's required. I have someone else saying, yes, it's required. And then there's a discussion on whether it's a sin to not wear the hijab, to have that choice. Is it a sin? And that's really another question. Does anybody know that it would be sinful for a Muslim woman to not wear the hijab? Because, again, if it's not a requirement, as if you read the Arabic in the Quran, we're not talking about this head covering, but they're considering it, these modern Islamic scholars are considering it sinful. And then they ask the question, is this a major sin or a lesser sin? So the major sins, they say, have punishments prescribed. And some of these scholars say, yes, it's a major sin, but they don't come out and say it's a major sin. They come out and say, well, there's punishments prescribed. So you sit there like, wait, why aren't you telling the whole story here? Why aren't you citing your sources? Why? And this is, again, the whole truth here is that the hijab in Islam is not required in the Quran. It is not required in the Hadiths. You'll read about them, but there is nothing stating it is a requirement. That is the strange truth of this. And that is, you got to sit there and ask questions. What is really going on when they say these things? So I'm going to go back and share my screen one more time here. Going between too many things here. Sorry about that. And I've got to pull this up. This is the problem when I get too many things going. Okay. And here we go. This should make censorship we have going on. All this stuff to protect Islam. Censorship. Think about that. Censorship is important to protect Islam. So is the hijab oppressive? If so, the followers of Islam would not have a problem with the murder of Islamic women who do not wear it, correct? If the hijab is oppressive, do you hear what I'm saying? Now, let's talk about this story. We do know that I'm asking this case because the doctor got censored because he claimed the hijab was oppressive. So if the hijab is oppressive, does it take away your opportunities in life? Can not wearing it get you killed? Could this be part of the reason why hijabis are afraid when their hijab gets loosened? Is this one of the reasons why they report false Islamophobia? So the story here, this comes from PJ Media by Robert Spencer on December 24th of 2020. Kabari Salem is a former Olympic boxer who was arraigned Tuesday on a murder charge on the strangulation death of his daughter, Ola Salem. Ola Salem, a Muslim women's rights activist, was found dead in Staten Island on October 24th, 2019. According to an acquaintance, Ola Salem was becoming very Americanized, and that seems to have been what sent her father over the edge. Kabari Salem was extradited from Kuwait, to which he fled not long after his daughter's body was discovered. Okay. So he starts saying, he just wanted to know what happened to her. She was a good, beautiful girl. Well, the reality was much uglier. This article states, quote, "It's unclear what sparked the violence," notes the Daily News. The DA's office wouldn't comment on a report that the father wasn't happy with the guy his daughter was dating. A source who knew the daughter told the Daily News she was becoming more westernized and didn't want to wear her hijab. The source, which for quite understandable reasons remained unnamed instead of Ola Slem, she was very outspoken. She wasn't timid. She was becoming Americanized. That increased the likelihood that this was an honor killing, a murder carried out in order to cleanse the family of the dishonor brought on it by the immorality of the daughter.
And let's be fair, this is not Islamic. This is just a cultural thing that people do. This isn't even,
Yes.
This is not in hadith or anything. This is just a made up
Yes.
thing that people have made up in the culture. So this is like a Eastern type of cultural thing.
And again, this is a claim that is made, that this is acceptable, that they have to do this to remove the concept that the woman's morality is damaged by her not being fully Islamic. And this is one of the scary truths, is that all this stuff we've been talking about, the hijab and the concept of what honor killing because a person isn't Islamic enough, it is scary. It is one of the reasons why these girls will make these false claims. They're afraid to go home. Their father will hear their hijab's been off or open and their hair's been seen, and they will at the very least get beat. There is fear. So, yes, well, that's part of the issue. It's not just so these claims. This is another reason why, again, why like you said, Issa, Dr. Kabir, it's really important that we understand that the cultural aspect here, we're talking about all of these Islamic cultures, and not just Islam has honor killing, just to let you know, that this culture, along with that concept of honor killing, has no problem with severe discipline to oppress people who won't comply. And this is scary. And in the Islamic culture, the woman, if we were in an Islamic culture and a woman, her hijab opened up, I mean, she would be subject, nothing, but not out of her own doing. She could be beat. There's a whole bunch of things that could happen. But if we were in a Sharia court, would she be allowed to say, I didn't mean it to be open? She's never allowed to give. Sorry, go ahead.
I think this is an interesting question. What does the hijab mean to the Muslim community? So in my studies, I was going for like a PhD, particularly looking at Islamic studies. The thing that I really learned is there's no monolithic Islam. It's polyolithic. So really just it's case by case study. So some families are really not even into hijab at all. And some women are like, well, this is empowering for me. So it really doesn't even matter what the text says. It's more about, this is self-identity politics, and Islam is my culture, it's my ethnicity. So this is an interesting thing. In certain places, like you take South Asia, Christianity is an ethnicity. Islam is an ethnicity. It is a religion too, but it's an ethnicity. If you're a Christian Desi or South Asian, that's your ethnicity too. You're different than like the Hindu criterion, or Sikh, or Muslim. Muslim is an ethnicity also. So these are, religion and ethnicity and culture can kind of all be muddled together. So this is really complex. It's a complex situation. There are families that I think do really care about this, and there are some families that it's not even just hijab. You have to wear a niqab. A niqab is a face veil. It's a veil that you put on your face. So certain places they might say this is what you need to do. And personally, in my opinion, I think we need to have as limited government as possible. I think the bigger the government you have, the more problematic it is. You have overreach. So I actually disagree with Ataturk's position, or not Ataturk, but the administration after him, where they were like, we're going to ban hijab. I'm like, no, that's another extreme. You can't ban anything. This government should not have that much overreach, in my personal opinion. The government needs to, I think the axiom we have here in America is very good in the United States, where we're like, we have separation between the religious center and the state. because religion and spirituality is between you and your God, your Lord, or your gods, whatever. That's your prerogative. So this type of thing, it's complex. It's very strange. It's like there are definitely cases where people are, depending on the culture, because there's so many different Muslim cultures. You know what I mean? Like the South Asian Muslim culture is not like the Indonesian one or the Senegalese one or the Arabian one. They're so different from each other. Like it's almost like a different religion. You go see the Islam in Saudi Arabia, it's not at all like the Islam in India. It's just very different, and that's another issue that really muddles the whole pond here.
Yeah, they tried to create Pan-Arabism at one point, and that didn't follow through. In the concept of Turkey, I can go back and give a little bit more history on what happened where they started to ban and why it took till 1980 for the hijab to be banned. That's simply because the Muslim Brotherhood was growing stronger and stronger, and Turkey wanted to take a stand against the Muslim Brotherhood's pushing of Sharia and concepts that they believed would force women to wear the hijab. So Turkey's stand against the Muslim Brotherhood then was to ban the hijab. And like you, I agree, that's too much power. A government should not have that much power to control how you wear your hair, what you put in your hair, how you cover your head, what you wear. No government should have that kind of power. I agree 100%. There was a government that had that kind of power. They forced people to wear yellow stars and then killed them. We call that Nazi Germany.
I agree.
And
fascism. We don't want any fascist state. We don't want America to be fascist. We don't want any of these other countries to be fascist. Like that's extreme. And now Turkey has it could be going into another direction where some might believe that hijab might become mandatory, and that's not good either. There should be like this is a part of like second and first wave feminism, but there's a thing called agency. Human beings should have agency. They should be able to have the right to dictate how they want to live their life as long as they're not hurting someone else. You need to have agency, and it's like trying to govern what women do with their bodies is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous position, and particularly men doing it. I don't think women should govern men's bodies, and I don't think a man should govern women's bodies. It's ridiculous. This is a ridiculous thing that people want to do, and I'm like, it's a waste of time.
And just to throw in there, ISIS decided that when they took over parts of Syria and Libya, when they took over these parts, that they would institute a requirement of the hijab. So the minute ISIS leaves the area, what is the first thing the women do? I mean, there's tons and tons of video you can find on YouTube of this where they're taking off their hijabs, they're burning them. That was the first thing they did. And it for the women to say that you will only find in a non-Muslim country. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but you'll only find in non-Muslim countries where women come out and say the hijab is not oppressive, it liberates me. In these Muslim countries where Sharia rules and hijabs are required, women will consider it a sign of oppression. And now, would you agree with that, Isa?
I am against theocracy, so totally that is incorrect, and it is oppressive. If a government tells people that they have to do something, that there's a problem with that government. We can't trust that government. And it's funny because look at these governments that are called Islamic governments, quote unquote. It's actually interesting. There's a Christian Palestinian writer named Wael B. Halak, and he wrote a text called The Impossible State. His argument is that basically the modern nation state cannot be a Muslim state. It's just impossible. It's like oil and water. These things will not work. A Muslim state could not be a nation state. And the issue, the way I would look at that is, let's take a country like Pakistan, for example. Pakistan's considered a Muslim country. Well, who does it protect? Well, overall, it protects people who are Sunni Muslims, Ahl Sunnah Jama'ah, and it protects primarily the ethnicity called the Punjabi ethnicity. There are many, it's not a homogenous country. There are many ethnicities that exist within Pakistan. So that's like an illusion that people think, oh, they're all the same thing. They're not. You have Pathan people. And all these ethnicities exist in Pakistan and India, and some exist also in Bangladesh, but particularly in India and Pakistan, they all have there's so little difference between the nation states, but there's like this political division based on a so-called Islamic identity. But take the example if you're a Shia Muslim, take the example if you're a Qadiani or Ahmadiyya and you live in Pakistan. Well, you're not protected because you're not viewed in the same way. Because the way that you interpret Islam is not the same way that the Sunni Islamic State views Pakistan. Even though Pakistan was created by the founder was a Shia, it is now basically has a Sunni governance. So it protects and promotes Sunnism. So if you're a Shia, it's bad news for you. It's bad news if you're into Ahmadiyya. It's bad news if you're any kind of deviant from that. If you're Christian, Hindu, whatever, Sikh, you're not going to be a part of the majority, because if you're Shia, you are distinct from a Sunni. The way you pray is different. The way you do ablutions is different, or wudu. It's all different. There's so many differences. Even the hadith collection, not the same. Everything is so different that you can be marginalized and attacked. And it's so-called, it's Muslim state, it doesn't protect all the Muslims there. Because they might not even view people like the Qadiani, the Ahmadiyya, as Muslims, even though they pray 5 times a day. And even though the Ahmadiyya are very close to Sunnis, they're like, you're not, we're going to reject you. You have to put Ahmadiyya on your passport because you're not the same as us. That's problematic, in my opinion. When you have a theocracy that basically states the interpretation of the religion, you don't want that. You just don't.
So here's another question out there. Should head coverings, if we banned head coverings in general from ID pictures, would you say that that would be acceptable? Not just the ban of the hijab, but a ban of head coverings. And again, it's supposed to be for an ID purpose.
Well, religiously, legally, anybody, if you have a religious identification, you can. Like, if you're Jewish, you can wear a kippah or a yarmulke. You can wear a kufi. You can wear a turban if you're Sikh. Like, that's just how it is. Like, that's legally how it is. You might argue, can you wear that you might ban niqab. That's different than wearing a head covering because it's already legal across all religions. So you would have to ban it for all. And I just think that's just too much overreach. I think the rule that we have right now is sufficient. You can wear a head covering, but it's understandable that your face might need to be shown because you need that for identification. So you could say you should ban the niqab.
I like that you mentioned the face again, because that is one of the things I come back to when I look at that passage back in the Quran, and they were talking about hiding even your makeup. So there was even the veil that they were talking about was hiding your face. Again, the concept of face, the concept of all these things being hidden. Why would you wear? There's another question I have, but for females. But again, I'm a guy. I'm not going to get it. I thought the purpose of putting on makeup was so you could be seen. So why cover up if you're putting on makeup? But that's one of those questions I just leave out there. Not going to be the expert.
I want to bring up something to you too,
Sure.
Sir, that I think is an interesting thing to think about. Is when we read the verse, it's an interesting concept that protecting women. Do we need to do that? Do we need to do that? I don't think most Muslims, even the way they wear hijab, in my understanding, it's not based on that. Because it's like, what it happens is it minimalizes agency. It's like saying you don't have the ability to protect yourself. You're kind of like almost a property, a treasure that needs to be, protected. Instead of saying, well, there are women who can protect themselves. They can defend themselves. Do women want to have agency to speak for themselves? It's like the same thing where you have a person who might identify as being like a progressive liberal woman, and she says, I'm going to speak for Black people and what they're going through. Is that correct? Is that the right thing to do? Can the Black people speak for themselves? Do they need to have that advocate speaking for them? Because when that happens, that mitigates the power of Black people, right? And that could be the same case for women. Do you need to have a person tell you, well, you need to be protected? Or can you advocate for yourself? These are interesting questions. And I think people like Ilhan Omar, the position that they're taking is they're trying to say we're reinterpreting Islam for ourselves. So there's these elements that exist within Islam. This is what it means to us. So we're going to wear the hijab because it empowers us. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Regardless of the
I guess
textual understanding.
I still see making an exception in the halls of Congress only for the followers of Islam for head coverings as an attempt at creating Islamic supremacy here in the United States. That's the one point I will point out there. I agree with you 100%. There's nothing in these scriptures that really defines the hijab. There is nothing in there that it does make the woman seem unable to protect herself. She's told. It's not even a direction. It's basically you're told what to do. There's not a choice. And at least that's the way I see Surah 24:31. It says, and see to the believing women to restrain their hair and do not display their ornaments. And it's talking about their private parts too. I mean, I see this as again, I like what Dr. Kufarphobia talked about, is that this is a perversion. There's a pervert who's out there, and he's combining this. One of the you have to truly be perverted when you start thinking about private parts, and then you start talking about women's hair and their makeup and their breasts. You're saying all these things, and you're talking about, and then you throw in there this concept of covering your hair. I sit here trying to get this correct, and it does. I'll admit it does sound extremely perverted. It doesn't necessarily make sense, unfortunately. Which the Quran in general. How can you go from one end of the body to the other so easily? I mean.
Do you mind if I add one thing too? That
Yes.
You said something kind of interesting about the what was the point? Oh, gosh, it slipped my mind. The point about the Congress halls. I think it's fair if everyone is treated equitably with that situation. So if Jewish people, Sikh people,
and they weren't
Christian nuns,
they weren't.
Yeah, and that's the problem. If that is the case, then that's
it
unjust.
is still the case.
Everyone or no
Jewish,
one,
Yeah, it is still the case. The Jewish people still are not allowed to wear the yarmulke. People are not allowed to wear hats. The only case where it's actually happened, it was violated entirely by Democrats, where they wore hoodies. They were violating a rule of Congress when they wore those hoodies that day, in solidarity with a guy who died, who they were saying were making false accusations against a police officer by doing that, standing in solidarity with a convicted felon. Unbelievable. But it's not, not a surprise for me. That's what you expect from people who want to sow division. They made a special exception, and the exception was written specifically for her. I can go back and double check that, but today there is no exception for Jews. There is no exception for Christian women. There is no exception for Sikhs. Nothing. But that exception, I believe, was written specifically for Ilhan Omar, claiming that her religion had superiority. And I say it has superiority because they're giving her that right over others who are not allowed that right. And that's where I run into trouble. I think what we have a country here, United States, where we have incredibly important material that has to be shared. Annie, you keep hearing sound leaving because you probably want to go to the YouTube link. You'll hear it better. You won't be losing sound. There's actually other people on the line, and it's not going through Global Patriot Radio. So you want to go to the YouTube link. That's what happens. Sorry about that, boy, as well. yes, the sound is there. It's just when other people are talking, it's just not being heard through Blog Talk Radio. I'll put the audio up later there. Some of these things you sit here and I mean, you just have to sit and think about. My biggest statement again is the hijab is not required according to the Quran. The hijab is not required. And, you know, if you actually do the study, if you actually discuss what the words mean, which is why I came to a conclusion that I never expected. When I started doing my research on, I try to start with a blank slate, find out what's actually true. And Tarek Fatah sent me in a direction I never expected to go. The question is, what are they talking about? And during this time period, did anyone actually wear a hijab? And from what they're saying, the answer is no, that it's not required because this, I mean, so you have to sit there and wonder when they show you all these videos of people from the time period of the Prophet where all these women are wearing hijabs, was that actually factual or was this illustration with artistic ideas? And that's probably more likely. There's probably an element of some speculation about dust. I'm saying dust and sand, where you would definitely cover your head. Most men would. I've actually read a discussion on hijabs for men, which kind of blew my mind. Didn't expect to run into that one. So, yeah, when you're out in the desert, you do put stuff over your head to protect your hair from the sand. I have not been in a desert since I was about 8 or 10 years old, and that was out west, and it's been a long time, and I'm thankful. I don't want to go back out to that desert. Oh my gosh, that was too many years ago. I think that's almost 50 years ago now. Wow. My concern again is you got to get all the facts before you put stuff out. I did research on this topic, I'd say for a few months before I wrote the chapter that's in my book. I put it up on, you can find this section if you go to paulsutliff.blogspot.com. I think I can put the banner up now I'm thinking about it. And you'll find that banner there. If you follow that link, paulsutliff.blogspot.com, you can find the link there. It'll show you where to go. That's important stuff. I mean, finding and get the facts. We don't have enough people out there doing that. I think that's part of the issue. I had some fun yesterday with Dr. Kufarphobia. We spent I cannot believe we spent over 5 hours on the air. But all we did, I have to admit, it was fun. All we did was read word for word the Quran. And we talked about what it said. We asked we did what we call critical thinking. Critical thinking requires that you ask questions about what you're reading. If you read the Quran and don't ask questions about your reading, you've got something going wrong in that noggin of yours. And why do I say that? It's simply because if you don't ask questions, you're never going to find the answers. And the truth of the matter is, when you're reading the Quran, how far are we up to right now? Chapter 2, 150?
No, actually, I think
186.
186,
187, maybe 200. We're at 200, I think.
Yeah, we're at 200.
Yeah, 200. Okay,
200.
So we read that far in. Yeah, and Issa joined us, and we read that far in, and we ran into a numerous amount of passages where there was so much information missing. That is, this is the thing that has to happen in Islam. Which has happened with the Bible. People do what's called critical thinking. You read a passage, you ask a question. You read a passage, you want to learn more. That's what, I'm a research writer. One of the things I laugh about, the description of my job. Okay, so what does a research writer do? Okay, well, we learn about something so we can learn more about what we don't know, so we can learn more about what we don't know. And you keep learning more about what you don't know until you think you have enough of what you do know to write down something down. And that's the truth of it. We just keep learning to find out more of what we don't know. And that's part of why I love being a research writer. I like learning. But if you don't ask questions, you can't learn. As demonstrated for 5 hours. And we were okay. We started in chapter 2 yesterday, and if you don't ask questions, you can't find answers. That's what it comes down to. They're having problems with this in Sweden. Part of the culture in Sweden, which still blows my mind, is you do not ask questions. I was there in 2016, and oh my gosh, our translator and our guide, his name was pronounced "How come?" And he thought it was extremely humorous when he learned English because it's a question. And he says, well, you're not supposed to ask questions, but my name, we just sat there and laughing. And then he totally showed us reasons why this part of the culture is problematic. In the United States and Canada and most Western civilizations, we teach kids in schools using something called the Socratic method, where the kids ask questions. We prompt them to ask questions so they can learn more. When you don't get prompted, there's something with Catholicism and Lutheranism called catechism, where you have planned questions, and you get planned answers. Okay. If you want to know, questions are so important today. I will not cease to be amazed by the people who do not ask them. That's part of why I really razz that Muslim guy. He didn't do his research before he published. I would be so embarrassed. I would take that video down, and I would never want anybody to know I did that. I'm not going to say I'm above doing something that's stupid. Have I got caught putting something in error down? Yeah. What did I do? Oh, I made it disappear because I honestly didn't want other people to know. That's the truth. Oh, that was when you start out doing jobs, you make mistakes. And you just have to, you got to learn from those mistakes. But if you don't ask questions, how are you going to learn? Maybe this sounds kind of repetitive. I apologize. Dr. Kufarphobia, your thoughts about yesterday? That I thought was, I know we went for a long time, but isn't that part of what we really encountered? That how can you read this without asking questions?
Well, yeah, 5 hours, and I think we started like in verse 50 something. So for 5 hours, I think we only covered like 150 verses. And one of the points that I had, made was that I'm looking at this, and the reason I'm doing this is I'm looking at it from the lens of someone who, let's say, doesn't know anything about Islam, doesn't know anything about Christianity, say that they're religious ignorant. And you're reading the book, and I find myself that I have more questions that I got to go look elsewhere for the answers.
You know what got me? I've read this before, and because we were asking questions, I started to come to the conclusion that because there's a statement in there that you have to be accepting of the religion of Abraham. That tells us that every Muslim must read the book of Genesis, because you don't find the story of Abraham you don't find the entire story. That's, I guess, part of it. You don't find the entire story in the Quran. So that tells every Muslim you must read the book of Genesis. But if you're not asking questions about what you read, you'll never do it. And I think that's one of the dangers of this faith structure. There's an element where you're not allowed to ask questions. You must submit to the Islamic scholars who tell you what you believe. That's one of the reasons I love Christianity. You can ask the questions yourself.
But here's the problem. Let's say I don't have access to, let's say, the Torah or the Tanakh. I would never know. Like, for instance, you read the Bible, right? It tells you how Adam was created. It tells you how Eve was created. You know the sons' names. You know which son killed which son and for why. You pick up the Quran, and there's lots of details about how Adam was created, and each time it's different, okay? But you have no idea how his wife is created, how Eve is. You know he's got 2 sons, but you don't know their names. You know one son killed the other son, but you have no clue which son killed which son. And then you go to, let's say, Israel. Oh, children of Israel, great. Who is this guy? Or what is Israel? Is it a person? Is it a nation?
Is that the son of Adam?
Yeah. I mean,
It's that quick.
If you ask a Muslim who's Israel, they'll tell you, oh, it's Jacob. And I'm like, great. Show me that in your Quran. Oh, it's not in the Quran. So your God didn't think highly enough to tell you, that Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and that Israel also applies to the 12 tribes. But this is a book that tells me it's clear, it's easy to understand, and it's explained. But yesterday, for 5 hours, I think we had more of a good laugh trying to make sense of the mess that's in the Quran, and all the times that it repeats itself over and over, and the bright yellow cow
I'm
that you
still trying to
slap
figure
the
out.
dead guy, and the dead guy supposedly, or the fact that Moses kept telling me it's a cow, and they still don't know what it is. I'm like, how is this book written by like I
Well,
would
it
even say a
says,
fifth grader?
it did say something that I'm going to be laughing about this for a while. That they say Allah tells Moses that it's a cow. I think it's Moses or the Israelites. It's a cow. They look at it and they still don't believe it. I mean, if Allah is telling you, if that's supposed to be God, and He's telling you, and you don't accept it, you're refusing to accept it, and you have to be told not once, not twice. I might have been 4 times. It was an incredible number when you think about it. It's a cow.
Right.
It's a cow. It's a cow. So that's why they call chapter 2 the cow. And
And
when
it's
you hear it's a bright yellow cow,
Now, I had somebody tell me that saffron, I think is the word that's in the Quran. I don't know because we were looking at the English equivalent. But now see, I've got Muslim friends over in Pal Talk, and I know some of them try to BS you. And he's saying, no, it means reddish yellow. I'm like, okay. How come nobody else says it's a reddish yellow?
so how is reddish yellow bright though? I mean, that's
I don't know. See, that's where Dr. Kabir is good, or my friend, what the Muslims know, because they can't speak Arabic. But I didn't take the time to go and look, to go to Corpus Quran and then look at the individual word and then see what it says. I don't think it says reddish anything.
No, I don't believe it does. That's again, if anybody has seen a yellow cow, please give us a call. We're interested in knowing because we haven't seen that.
And it was funny because I was on Pal Talk before I came into your show, and I was on a in a room, and there's a Muslim that I've known for the last 3 years. Because I used to have a room, I still do, but I just don't open it, where I strictly used to debate Muslims. And I posted the verse, the verse where Moses tells the Jews to kill themselves.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I told him, I said, hey, is suicide okay? Because I know it's not. It's a major sin. And you will get tortured with suicide in Allah's hell. So you're going to keep committing suicide or something like it. And he was trying to say, no, that's not what it says. It's talking about for the other Jews to kill those that were worshiping the cow. And I'm like, dude, where are you reading that? It clearly, but see, Moses is saying, oh, my people. Well, of course, weren't the people that were worshiping the cow his people also? He wasn't telling everybody, because not everybody worshiped the calf. And how come we don't know the color of the calf or how the calf was made? Was it a real calf? Because in the Torah,
well, they
it's made
talked
out of
about
gold.
its milk. So, I mean, I think they just mentioned its milk, and they talked about chopping it up.
But is that the same cow? Is it the one that they worship, or was this a special cow that it had to be bright yellow so that when you cut it and you slap the dead guy with it, the dead guy would come back and say, hey, so and so killed me? Could you imagine? We would have no crimes anymore. We could just find a yellow cow, chop it up, and slap the dead guy over it or the dead gal, and it would wake up and tell us who killed it.
And as silly as this sounds, people, as silly as this sounds, we read that word for word in the Quran yesterday. So a big shout out. You want to go to Dr. Kufarphobia's YouTube site, and he's going through a dissecting the Quran series. He's going verse by verse, and I think that's I think that's extremely important. People will say, well, it's 5 hours long. You don't have to watch it all at once. Watch it in pieces. I think there's great importance in that. And it just is, I have to say, it's mind numbing.
It's also hard to do like a timestamp, because it's not like I thought about it, but I'm like, I
can go back with that.
There's certain points that I guess I could put a timeline, like the one where it says to commit suicide or the yellow cow. And if somebody wants to volunteer, hey, I'm all for it. But to do little shows, I mean, I guess I could split it into like, 5 1-hour shows, but I'm not good at that.
I think the timestamps are probably the best thing. I mean, I've actually tested for some of the work I've done, but that's not a bad idea too. So this stuff is just kind of mind numbing every time.
Yeah, but wait till tomorrow, because I'm off tomorrow. I'm thinking of doing like a marathon.
Oh wow! We'll see. What time are you thinking about?
Let me see. It's going to have to be definitely after 12.
Okay, that works for me.
Because I've got to take my dog to the groomer. It's her late Christmas, early birthday present, and everything. So I got to drop her off at 11, and they usually take between 2 to 3 hours. So I don't want to start something and then the pet groomer calls me up and says, "Hey, come get your dog." So I figured I'll do it after I get home, from her. I have to see how many hours I have on one account. May have to do it. Now I know StreamYard, it won't cut your stream off. So like if you go over to 20 hours.
Okay.
As long as you start, it just won't allow you to do another one once you go over it. But then I have my other account, but I don't think I've done 10 hours yet, because I haven't gotten to notice.
So here's the thing you can do with StreamYard, and this is what I've learned. All you have to do is go back, and you can go to the recordings and you delete past recordings, and then you still have that time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because the time they're talking about generally has to do with how much is recorded and kept. That's usually what that's talking about.
Now, my understanding. Now, do they keep it on their server if you have a free account, or is that only if you pay?
Oh,
I'll have to go.
That might be because I pay a small amount, I think.
Yeah,
but
I'll have to look, because I know I saw something that says it doesn't record or something, so I'll have to see if it keeps it on there. So honestly, I don't look at it. See if there's like maybe past recordings or something. Yeah, I mean, maybe you might be right, and they're just going by whatever's saved and say, okay, because my runs from the 11th to the 11th. So
Oh, before I forget, I did want to cover one other way off topic issue that I have a friend. His name is Todd Bensman, and let me just see if I can share this screen. Todd Bensman is one of those go-getter journalists. You don't see enough people like Todd. So I'm going to see if I can just share the screen real quick. And I think this article he just did is so drastically important. Let me see if I can get this. All right. Go here, and I'm just going to. Can you all see that? Let me just double check, make sure. Okay, it doesn't help when I switch back. Can everybody see the Mexico freed a suspect? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. All right. So I want to, this is the joy of switching back and forth. Mexico freed a suspect, Yemeni terrorist migrant. Now, I read that this week and I got really concerned because, Todd is the kind of guy, he's the one who goes down into the Triborough. He goes into all these areas. He interviews people. He's the boots on the ground type of journalist. So when he writes an article like this, he writes for the Center for Immigration Studies. And this really concerned me because, my big topic is civilization jihad, which is basically the nonviolent part of jihad. The Muslims move in and they try to take over the country. That's basically how that works. But the part of the Muslim Brotherhood's doctrine, the threat doctrine, is it doesn't matter where you are. If you're on this milestone, they use milestones. But Said, I never, that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you.
It's Said Qutb.
Said Qutb. Okay,
Said
thank
Qutb.
you. That's
Qutb.
I could never Qutb. Okay, never been able to pronounce that name right.
Qutb. There's a B at the end.
Qutb. Okay, yeah. So he wrote Milestones and the Concept of Abrogation. Stephen Coughlin explains the threat doctrine of the Muslim Brotherhood using that and says it doesn't matter. You can be on any one of these stages, and this is the danger of the Muslim Brotherhood. I suggest picking up his book, Catastrophic Failure, or you can go into my channel. You can look for the threat doctrine of the Muslim Brotherhood, which I'll cite his book in there. But this is why I wanted to cover this. Mexico frees a suspected Yemeni terrorist migrant and left Americans to find him. Todd Bensman writes, on November 20th, the government of Mexico released a Yemeni migrant who was on the FBI's terrorist watch list on condition that he reported weekly to Mexican immigration authorities, according to law enforcement intelligence document obtained by the Center for Immigration Studies. Instead, of course, Ahmed Mohammed Ahmed Al-Tayyab disappeared. By the first week of December, the Del Rio Sector Border Intelligence Group was distributing a Be on the Lookout bulletin warning, known in law enforcement as the BOLO, that the Mexico released special interest migrant is suspected of planning to travel to the U.S. southern border illegally. CIS obtained the BOLO. It said that Al-Tayyab is listed on the FBI's terrorist screening database as a Category 5 group member. He's the latest in a string of such discoveries during 2021. Amid an historic mass migration crisis that has overwhelmed the U.S. border security apparatus, to include a number of terrorism-connected Yemenis and most recently a Saudi terrorism suspect on the FBI list caught near Yuma, Arizona. Now, Todd was one of the first to report on that one, too. So here's my concern. We have been talking about, and like I said, this is kind of off topic, but the FBI, the Homeland Security people, the DHS, the Border Patrol, we had a system in place, and I've talked about it repeatedly on my show, and I've had Todd on the show repeatedly to talk about the security the devices we had throughout Mexico, throughout Central America, which are basically reporting stations. They would look at the migrants, they would observe them all, and if they had any facial recognition of someone there that would be on our watch list, this is something to think about. They're doing facial recognition on the migrants moving all the way to the border. And, if they see somebody, they will pick them up. And that's been happening since Bush has been in office. And that's important to understand. Even throughout Obama's time, that happened. And all of a sudden, it's becoming non-functional. And that, to me, is a huge concern. It's kind of scary. Because right now, we know that they don't know where he is. What does that say? Is that scary? Yeah, it should be. Yeah. What does it say when your national security of your country is all of a sudden absent? And the past experience has been that you protect your borders by stopping the problems before it hits your border. But now that's not functioning. I mean, the description of this security force that had been there. We're talking since George W. Bush was in office. The description of this case shows that it's not functioning. It's one thing to think about our security forces being there and doing their job, but to actually, this sounds like our active work that had been working together with Mexico. It sounds like it's been dismantled. And if you paid attention to anything about how Mexico and Biden got along, it wasn't pretty. So maybe something happened. Now our protection is gone. I'm drastically concerned. People, I want to tell you to follow Todd Bensman, go to the Center for Immigration Studies, read his work. There's not many people who do what he does. I'm also going to tell you, subscribe to Dr. Kafirphobia and Dr. Kabir. Their work is excellent. Listen to Eric of Kafiristan. You definitely want to get in on all of us that are working to get the truth out. I do a little bit more than talk about just Islam. I try to get a lot more news in, and lately I've been doing more, I guess, in addressing some of the dangers of Islam. I tend to look more at the war that is not active, the war that is not what we would call kinetic. And this war against civilization is following, believe it or not, the concept of Sun. Now I'm going to get his name wrong.
Sun Tzu, The Art of
Tzu.
War.
Yeah,
Sun Tzu.
The Art of War. Yeah, this is the part that kills me. Sun Tzu taught people, the best war is where you don't have to actually fire any weapons. You don't have to kill anybody. You just go in and you do stuff to make them give up. And, this is my big statement about civilization jihad, the whole concept of it, is that it happens behind the scenes. It's happening in Canada, people. They're still in the process of outlawing all free speech, anything that would address Islam that could be considered an insult or demeaning or bothersome to someone who is Muslim. They're still in the process of doing that. It's not negated. It is still in process. It could have been, this is motion 107, I think. I have to go back and look. This stuff is still in process. In England, it's happening. All across Europe, it's happening. We just saw in Canada, the medical journals are now being cleansed from anyone who asks questions. Oh, I mean, is censorship going to be supreme? And how does that show constant move to take over? When people start, this is where we have to admit Sun Tzu was a genius. I will grant him that. I've read The Art of War. It's not exactly easy to read. I'll admit that too. But there are a lot of highly intelligent thoughts in there. And if you will admit that a takeover without the use of any weapons is a far better victory. Wow. Oh, you missed a lot, Eric. Sorry. I hope you had a good visit with your pastor. Thanks for joining us. We're about to head off the air. And people, you do want to go and catch Eric at the Cross and the Crescent discussion group this Sunday. He's got another great topic. I don't know if can you share what that is this week? Let's see. Yeah, I'm only a 2-hour show. Yep. Yeah, I can't do 5 hours. I just don't have that in me to plan that from the time I start, 6 o'clock. Oh, so Eric's going to do Islam, true or false? Lots of things to bring up. You can talk about, was Mecca really existent? Was Muhammad really existent? And a whole bunch of other things that could be fun to discuss. So you definitely want to come and listen to that on this Sunday. All Muslims welcome, please. You have any Muslim friends who are out there, dare them to take a chance and listen to this. Invite them. Please do. I want to say God bless you all. Thank you for listening. And we'll have to have you come back and see how life is going. God bless everybody.
Hey,
Thank
God
you.
bless. If Eric wants to maybe join us tomorrow sometime after 12, 1 o'clock, we can do a marathon. I wasn't complaining about your show being 2 hours. I was telling Eric, because he says, what did I miss? I said, only 2 hours. That's what he gets for being late. Anyway. All right. So hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. God bless. I'll definitely try and send me a note and I'll join you. God bless. See you soon.
I'll send you a note. I'll put it in the group. All right. See you guys later.
Bye.